I learned what SMA is from when my son was born. And we thought, you know, he was just healthy baby. And then later on, we discovered that he had SMA type 1 when he got sick at 7 weeks old. Confusing and didn't understand kind of like why. And it was hard just because I had to learn how to take care of my son. He got diagnosed at 9 weeks old, so we came in the hospital at 7 weeks old, and he was officially diagnosed at 9 weeks old. So we got told that, you know, my son had that Jackson had a death sentence. And that was extremely hard. I don't think any parent should be told that their child has a death sentence. Madison Johnson is my other child with SMA type 1, and because of Jackson, she is still here today, and she is doing awesome with Spinraza. She got it at 33 days old, and because of that, and for her to get it at newborn, she's doing amazing. She took a couple of steps, and she's 1.5. I never thought, knowing what my son went through, I never thought my daughter could be able to walk. I never ever, any SMA baby could be able to do the things that Madison is able to do. I think is very important to get it added to newborn screening. It saves lives. I mean, Madison is living proof that it saves lives.
I have 3 girls, actually have 4, and our journey with SMA began back in 2004. Our first daughter was born September 8th, 2004, and we expected a perfectly normal, healthy baby, and that's what we got in the beginning. Starting about 3 months, I started noticing a change in her movements and the lack of movement. She wasn't rolling, she wasn't able to lift her head. I brought that to the attention of our pediatrician a little before 3 months, I believe, and it was kind of just, oh, you're paranoid first-time mom. You just have a lazy baby. She's doing fine. She looks great. She did look great, other than the fact that I knew she wasn't moving as much as I thought she should be. Some of the other things I noticed was her sneeze. When she would sneeze, you wouldn't even hear her sneeze. And so I thought, wow, well, this is unusual. But time went on, and I just then we had to start going in for weekly weight checks on her because her weight kind of, tapered off. And they were more concerned with her weight, whereas I was more concerned with the fact that she was never able to lift her head, and we went back and forth about that. Still, I was told she was fine, she was just a lazy baby. Finally, I stepped down on my own and decided I'm going to get a second opinion. My husband and I talked about it, and I knew in my gut something was wrong. And within 5 minutes, she turned around and said, "You're correct. There's definitely something going on here." She mentioned the word hypotonia and sent us home and said that she would be in contact with us later on. She was going to talk to Children's about getting in to see a neurologist. My husband started researching hypotonia. That can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. There was probably over 100 diseases and things that came up, and he went through each one. And I refused to look at that. I was like, no, she's going to be fine, everything's good. I remember him specifically pointing out this one disease and said, Werdnig-Hoffman syndrome. And he said, but there's no way. This is a terminal disease. So we know she doesn't have this. So we moved on, and we went to see a neurologist about a week after seeing Dr. Harris, and went in, and I'll never forget, my mother-in-law and my best friend were like, we're going to go with you. And I was like, we've got this. I know we're first-time parents, but we don't need backup. We're good. We can handle this. Thank God they went with us. We just started, talking and telling him what was going on with Madison and the things that she was not doing. And he, was looking over her, and as he would ask us a question, I remember I could just see in his mind, I could see it in his facial expressions that, yeah, he had an idea of what this was. And it was just, we were confirming everything, that he was saying. So, towards the end, we were sitting there, and he said, well, I know you've done some research, so I need to ask you, have you ever heard of Werdnig-Hoffman syndrome? I had forgotten all about that because I refused to even think about anything. And I remember looking over at my husband, and I remember the tears started coming up in his eyes, and I said, what is it? What's going on? And he said, do you remember me mentioning this to you? And I said, no. And he said, this is the disease that we know is terminal, and there's no cure. And that's when I'm glad my family was there with us. And Dr. McGrath told us, this is what we're going to do. We're going to send you upstairs. We're going to do blood work. We'll get some results back. Regardless when these results come in, you have to promise me you come in to get the results. I will not give them to you whether they're good or bad over the phone. On Monday, we get the phone call, the results are in, to come to the office. And I think I was a little mentally prepared and had time for it to sink in somewhat. I knew when he came in what he was going to say, and he told us, I'm so sorry, but her results have come back, and her test is positive for SMA. We're like, okay, well, what do we do next? Well, there's not much we can do. We're going to set you up with a pulmonologist to talk to him. But unfortunately, at this point, your daughter will probably not live to reach the age of 1. 80% die by the age of 2. So we just tell you this up front so you can prepare for that and love them. And we're like, no, we're not doing that. That's unacceptable. We're gonna beat this. We're gonna do everything we need to do to give her the best quality of life that we can. So that began our life with our first experience. When she passed at 3.5, she was unable to move any part of her body except for her index finger. Cognitively, smart. She was nonverbal. We heard her say mama and daddy before she got sick and her lung collapsed, and after that she regressed and was unable to speak. Madison passed in March of '08, and I have 2 beautiful, completely healthy children in between that. We did testing with those children while I was pregnant and knew when they were born that they were SMA free. We were done having children, so we thought, and then we had a late life unexpected blessing, and her name is Addie. Adeline, actually, we call her Addie, and she was born August of 2015. When I found out I was pregnant, I was devastated. It's so hard to understand that something so joyful can also in the same breath be so scary and so sad, because I knew what we could be up against again. We discussed it, and we decided that we were not going to test with this pregnancy. We were going to have this baby regardless. It wasn't going to matter, so we did not do genetic testing, and we would just take what we got and go from there. So healthy, normal pregnancy, everything was great. Delivery was great. About 6 weeks, I started noticing that she had some weakness in her legs. And I called my pediatrician. I said, we need to come in. We need to have her tested. I feel like we're in the same boat that we were with Madison, and I want to go ahead and get started on what we need to. So we did. And unfortunately, those results came back positive for SMA. And that was on a Saturday that we got those results. Monday morning, I got up in the middle of the night. My husband's on the computer, and he is researching like crazy. And he says, we're not going down like this. We're going to find something for her. There's clinical trials, and we're going to get her in somewhere. So we found this clinical trial in Columbus, Ohio. We contacted them, told them, you know, this is where we are. These kids do not have time. Once this is diagnosed, it has to be addressed. Time is of the essence in this disease. Amazing. To see her and know what we lived 11 years ago, it's a miracle. There's no other word, and all of our family and friends that knew Madison and know Addie say the same thing. When you see her, she eats by mouth, she has no G-tube, she's never used breathing assistance, she is in a wheelchair, but she can eat, feed herself, roll over, she can talk and tell me when something hurts. I never could get that from Madison. And you don't know when you have an itch, when when something hurts or they're itching and they can't even reach and scratch their own, you know, itch. It's amazing to see her and know she's the same age right now as Madison was when she died, and she goes to preschool. It's the most important thing for this now. Years ago, I used to go and meet with our representatives for additional funding, for research for SMA, and about newborn screening, and receive the same statement, well, there's no treatment. There's nothing there to justify us doing that. We have to have something that has a treatment. Well, we have a treatment. We have almost a cure. And if these kids are caught early on, there's 2 children in her trial that walk and jump and have no signs of SMA whatsoever. And that's because they received it early on. So it is important that these families don't go through what we went through. We went through begging someone to listen to us, and that we knew something was wrong. And by the time I finally found someone, it was honestly too late. She had lost so much already. If you catch this early on, you stop those motor neurons from dying. You stop them from losing what they've got.